I'm making this video today to show how to use IR photography to evaluate if a Magic the Gathering card is authentic or a counterfeit. I have never seen IR photography used or IR in any way used in order to make this determination before, so this is kind of a new method. Because of that, I tell people that they should probably take caution if they're using this. This isn't, 100% proven either way. Obviously there are counterfeits that'll probably pass this method, and one of the two tells that I found on this, some of the samples I have do pass, some don't. Essentially, black core samples don't pass one of the tests, but a blue core sample will. So in order to undergo this testing, you need an IR camera. Now, they're not cheap, so what you can do is convert an old crappy camera, in which case I converted a Fujifilm FinePix 1300 to full spectrum by removing the protective coating over the sensor, and then installing a coating that blocks all light but IR, which is essentially just two pieces of exposed negative over the sensor. So this camera right here, which has a crappy live view but takes pictures you can at least see, will photograph in the IR region. So commonly you hear the UV test, where you take the UV flashlight and you shine it over the cards. I actually have a UV flashlight here. You can shine it over these cards. They look about the same. The proxy I have right here on the left is one of the new 5th edition German black core, whatever iteration they're on at the moment, and it passes that test. The difference between the two lights, though, is that UV light has a really short wavelength. It has a lot more energy to it, and because of that, it can help things fluoresce and they glow. So you're not actually seeing the UV light when you see that glow. You're seeing that UV light interacting with something else and creating the fluorescence. IR light is on the other side of the spectrum. It's when you go past red and into the infrared, where you're beyond seeing. In the case of infrared, you don't have that energy behind it, so you don't get any kind of fluorescence. If you go even further into the infrared, you get to the point where you start to get the thermal photography. But I'm looking more at just the point beyond what a person can normally see. So infrared's kind of cool in that respect. The interesting thing is, if I take a picture of one of the lights in my room that has an LED in it, it's completely black on the infrared camera. But if I take a picture of an incandescent, which releases a lot of infrared, a lot of heat energy, it's definitely bright. So I had to actually get an incandescent light and use it as my light source in all these trials, because the LED in my room just wasn't causing any illumination whatsoever. Essentially, I'm going to go into photographs from here, taken by this camera and copied onto my computer, and I'll just do a play-by-play as I'm cycling through them to say what I saw, what I didn't see, and hopefully some people can draw some conclusions on how this test could be applied to them. I'd be happy to hear from anyone that's actually tried to apply this, if there's any kind of exceptions, if it's working out really well. Every time you come up with a new test, that definitely gives you another tool, something else that a counterfeiter is going to have to work around. And if they have to work around it, at the expense of what? Is it going to cause something else to fail? So the more tests you have, the more tests you can run, the more you can protect yourself from counterfeit cards, if that's your concern. So this is just to give you a flavor of what you'll be seeing here. So essentially, the sensor is either picking up IR light, or it is not picking up any of this IR radiation. So you end up with this monotone photograph like this one. This was taken outside on an overcast day. There's lots of trees in this picture, and they kind of glow like they're covered in snow, and they're actually reflecting that IR radiation. You'd normally think trees are green, but these ones are just reflecting all the light that's hitting them that this camera's trying to capture. So if we go on, not every picture I took is included here. I took quite a few pictures of everything. This first picture here is a gamble, and this is an authentic one on the right, the counterfeit one on the left, and I'm using my incandescent bulb as a light source, and there's not really much of a difference here. The front was not a good tell to say one is fake or one is authentic. They look basically the same. The one on the right might be slightly more washed out, or that could have just been the positioning of light source. So I tried some more cards that I knew were fake or authentic, and in this picture, the pirate ship on the left is an unlimited, the time twister in the middle should be unlimited, but it's a counterfeit, and the arid mesa on the right is also a counterfeit. So the time twister looks significantly washed out, especially around the border. It definitely doesn't look good under IR light, and that's a different counterfeit type than the arid mesa, a different batch of counterfeits. It's a much older counterfeit. So it didn't hold up too good under this test, but again, that's a subjective difference. It's kind of hard to pinpoint it other than, yeah, this kind of doesn't look right. But the real tell, the one I was proudest and happiest with, was this picture. This is the back of the Gamble authentic on the left and the counterfeit on the right. So if you look at the black coloration dot, which should be the lower right-hand corner dot of the 5, on the authentic version, it's pretty white. It's reflecting most of that IR radiation. But on the counterfeit version, it is black. So that was a striking difference, one of those spot the difference things between the two of these. And so I kind of ran with that, and I took some more fakes and compared them to a real card. And these are 3 different kinds of fakes on the right-hand side of this picture, and on the far left, that is the authentic card. And the authentic has the white dot, but all 3 fakes, 3 different types of fakes, have a black dot. So from what I was seeing so far, and what I saw with other pictures, was all the fakes that I have show up black for the black dot. Well, what about the authentic versions? So I loaded up lots of real versions, and I went through as many sets as I could. I was going through Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Shadows of Innistrad, tons of lands, just whatever I had laying around, and I'd lay them out like these ones and just photograph them, and every single time the black dot shows white. So that worked out pretty well, and I think that would be a strong tell. And I haven't tested it with every set, but I think that would be a strong tell to say, hey, this card's definitely looking suspicious. I wouldn't say it's a confirmation at this point, because we haven't done enough testing and we haven't tried enough cards, but it's definitely a suspicion. So I also tried basically how much light does a authentic card pass through in the IR range, and how much light does a counterfeit card. So in this picture, the left-hand side of the picture, you see right through this Gamble. You can see the magic logo in the back. You can see the guy falling. That is the authentic card. So the authentic cards pass IR light perfectly. On the right, you can't even see it. That black cutoff there, that is where the counterfeit card is. And these cards aren't any thicker than regular cards. These are the black core versions, though. So the black core version absorbed every last bit of that IR light. It was just blocking it. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't pass the light test. It definitely looks dimmer, but at least light goes through it. But with IR light, you see nothing go through this thing. But when I took the crappy Time Twister proxy I had, I held that up versus an authentic card, that passed plenty of IR light. It looked basically identical to the authentic pirate ship from Unlimited. And the difference between the two of them is the Time Twister has a blue core, and the pirate ship, the Gamble, has a black core. So I'm guessing that's probably the cause. You can check blue-black core easier with a loop looking at the edge, but definitely looks different with the IR light. So, that's basically, out of all of these tests, I got the 2 findings. One, that black dot, looks black on counterfeit cards and looks white on authentic cards, and I found no exceptions to that rule, but I don't have a lot of samples from which to pull counterfeits from. And also, it seems black core proxies absorb all of the IR radiation trying to go through them, whereas blue core proxies pass it. So a black core proxy would fail the IR light test, but it would a blue core proxy would pass it in terms of the light transmitted through it. So hopefully you found this interesting. It's definitely a different take on things, and hopefully it'll be useful in the future for different people. in the event they overcome, counterfeiters overcome one of the hurdles, it's just better to give them more hurdles that they have to jump.